It's the Hicks, it's the Knicks in the playoffs, and I want to look deeper into the Knicks. Some questions about the Knicks that might be challenging for the Pacers, that might not at all be challenging for the Pacers. In what ways will the new look Knicks shape this series, and how will the Pacers respond? We'll get to all of it today on a Sunday Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Sunday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today I have some questions about the New York Knicks and how it will look in this series. And my questions, I don't necessarily mean like I don't understand this thing about the Knicks, more so how will this shape the conference final series between New York and Indiana? So much fun diving into these teams, obviously watching them all quite a bit, but you get a better sense for it when you look at the numbers, the playoff numbers, the everything. And I follow a lot of Knicks people kind of randomly, so I do see a lot of the chatter, I would say, around the team and things they find good and concerning, and everybody's very excited for this series. Tomorrow, Locked On Knicks, Gavin Shaw and I are going to do our series preview crossover, and then Tuesday we'll do our typical where we think the Pacers could find advantages in this series show. Jay Rigdon and I nailed that one before the Cavs series, and then Wednesday we get rolling. Let's dive into the New York Knickerbockers. So one thing that I think is going to be fascinating, and I think a weirdly missed perception by anyone outside of like those who really are into the Knicks, is the way the Knicks actually thrive lineup wise, right? They start that group of Brunson, Hart, the two really good wings of Bridges and Anunoby, and Cat. Great players. 5 awesome players. I traded a lot for 2 of those guys who weren't involved in this series last year. But that actual lineup on its own is not having a good playoffs. I've seen a lot of chatter about this from the Knicks sphere about the Knicks rotation. 266 minutes in the playoffs is the most of any team or any group. It's actually tied with the Nuggets starters right now. So by the time this episode comes out, it might not be first, but Towns, Anunoby, Hart, Bridges, Brunson in 266 minutes has a minus 4.7 net rating, right? It's a good group. It has good players on the floor. It's not like this is it's going to start the game and the Pacers are going to start up 5-0 every game. Like, it's still a good lineup. I'm not saying it's some advantage that it's been negative, but a lot of the Knicks' success isn't that specific group. And think about the chatter after game 5 of Celtics Knicks. Josh Hart had 24 points in that game. He was very good. I love Josh Hart. However, he doesn't get guarded the same way other players do. He took 9 threes in that game. Like a lot of teams, and I've assumed the Pacers as well will do this, will put a non-center on Towns and then put their center on Hart. And maybe the Pacers will do something a little different than that because of a question I'll get to later. But that lineup has not been the killing force for the New York Knicks in the playoffs. Of their lineups with 10 minutes or more, all of them are positive. All their lineups with more than 10 minutes are positive net rating, except for that starting 5. And then Towns, Anunoby, Hart, Brunson, McBride in 13 minutes. So not even a big enough playoff sample for it to matter, is minus as well. Everything else is where they are awesome, right? Plus 2.3 net rating when Mitchell Robinson's been out there at the 5 with the starting 5. Plus 34 net rating when they get McBride and Mitchell Robinson out there. Towns with some bench guys, Campaign and McBride and Robinson, has been awesome in over 20 minutes, right? They can mix and match really well. It gives them other sorts of identities. That's where I will think this series will get fascinating to me from a lineup perspective, right? When the Knicks go Robinson, Towns, at times I felt like in the Cavs series, the Cavs got away from their 2 big lineups too much against the Pacers. And the Pacers played very well against pretty much regardless of who the Cavs had on the floor in that round. But I felt like at the start of game 5, the game the Cavs had to win could shift the series dynamics. Evan Mobley scoring at the basket. Jared Allen was like, okay to start the game before he fell off completely. The 2 big groups were good. Could the Robinson Cat lineups look really good in this game? Robinson's had an awesome playoffs. He's defending very well. He's a great rebounder. That he could present some challenges. Cat is obvious in what challenges he presents. He's the best shooting big man in the NBA right now and is a very good rebounder himself. I'm not saying those guys don't have flaws in their game. It's just I get how they together have posed problems for opponents throughout this postseason, whereas Deuce McBride gives the Knicks another ball handling threat in a way that they don't not have it. Mikal Bridges can handle. Anunoby's much better. at that than he was early in his career. But like a guard who can do it and is still slithery and like hand in his face doesn't matter. McBride's been making shots in this playoffs. Those are the kind of lineups that I think will be where the Knicks and have so far in the playoffs. That doesn't mean that it will continue to be the case, but so far have been where the Knicks have been at their best, is when they have some sort of mixing and matching going on with their top two reserves and their five starters in some way. That is something I will be fascinated about with this series when it comes to the Pacers. They're not as top heavy as people say. That's only kind of true. It's true in that they play their top five players a lot of minutes, but that specific group altogether is not particularly, the reason the Knicks have been good, right? And a credit to the people who cover the Knicks for being just all over this the whole time. So I think the mixed groups will be key for the Pacers too, with starters and reserves, because starters on starters might just, be a thing that they go back and forth. And then when the Knicks make their subs and have what have been in the playoffs stronger lineups on the floor, are the Pacers making subs? Is their pace still able to be successful? Are they going to have to respond to how the Knicks sub? Like if it's Mitchell Robinson, is the Pacers' first sub going to have to be Obi Toppin or a center? If it's Deuce McBride, will it be McConnell or Mathurin? Like, I think that will be interesting. And that's what Carlisle kind of mentioned at practice on Saturday for the Pacers is it's not just the Knicks' best guys that being good, it's that they play more, right? The way they handle their rotation versus the Pacers is different. Like the best guys in the Knicks just play more, which sounds great, but like there's a level of fatigue and all that the Pacers try to avoid with the way they build out their rotation. It's like, what percentage of a guy's peak are you trying to hit every second he's on the floor? It's just different thinking. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but that is how the Knicks handle it. And so for the Pacers to wear them down, right? The wear down effect we heard about so much in Pacers Cavs with the speed and the passing and the just, it's so exhausting playing the Pacers. The Pacers, to me, to combat, air quotes, the Knicks and where they had success with their rotation, will have to be speedy with subs. Their bench groups have to be fast. Their bench is still a fast group in general, right? TJ McConnell can play with tempo. Obi Toppin's very clearly good in the Pacers style, right? I think Ben Mathurin, who had his career high, and his high scoring game this season against the Knicks, actually has a setup for a good series, but he's got to be on his A game with the speed and the decisions in this series to make sure that bench groups or mixed and matched groups of reserves and starters for the Pacers are playing with tempo to make it so that the Pacers can try to get that wear down effect, that speed going against any Knicks group and force the Knicks to kind of make decisions reacting to what the Pacers are doing instead of vice versa, where the Knicks have these lineups that are really good that aren't their starting five. Make the Knicks mess up. Make them change their lineups in response to what the Pacers are doing, because the inverse has worked out so well for New York throughout the playoffs. And their best groups have either a big interior or like a scoring identity secondary kind of group. So I think that the perception of the Knicks is right in that they play their best players a lot. But the perception of the Knicks is wrong in that their starting five all collectively together has just been this bludgeoning, incredible lineup that will really, cause problems for the Pacers. And it will in some ways. I will get to them later. Like Anunoby, Bridges, Hart, Brunson, Cat is an amazing group of five players, to be clear. But as the Pacers have shown, their starting five is just as amazing in this playoffs. Andrew Nembhard and Nesmith have been amazing. Haliburton, star-level stuff. Siakam, their stabilizer. Myles Turner having another great playoffs. Those lineups can go round for round with each other, right? It will be fun to see them go back and forth. But when subs come in, that's where I will have a lot of intrigue about how this looks, where it's going, what comes next. And the Knicks offense is very intriguing to me, how the Pacers will handle it and where this will go. The Knicks offense is good, but not for the reasons many seem to think. Again, people who cover the Knicks are all over this. Let's talk about the Knicks offense, the challenges it will present the Pacers, and why. Oh, boy. Rebounding, just like last year, where the Pacers did slowly figure it out throughout the series, but did not start on it well, will be very important in this series. Before we talk about that, we got to talk about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. They have surprising insights that can tell you how much you're spending on certain things. If you're spending too much, like things like food delivery, now you can budget smarter and save more. They have all-in-one convenience, so you don't have to juggle multiple apps, and easy collaboration, so you can do multiple accounts personal accounts on there. Set goals with your partner without stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKDOWNNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKDOWNNBA for half off. How about that? Of your first year. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Locked On Knicks, of course, should be your second listen, but also check out the winner and or loser, depending on your interest, of Thunder Nuggets later today. You might be listening to this and that game's already over. One of them will be conference finals bound. One will be out. Will the Knicks have the best record left after today? That would be fascinating. Of the final four teams, the Knicks offense, very good. More balanced in the playoffs, but the regular season, just a very good offense for the New York Knicks. It was fifth in the league at 117.3, 2 full points per 100 possessions ahead of the Pacers. That's a regular season stat. In the playoffs, the Pacers have been the best offense of the team still alive. But I think the reason the Knicks offense score isn't really the perception I think I see from a lot of people about what makes them so good. They were ninth-ish in the regular season, depending on if you go to a site that estimates effective field goal percentage or actually tracks it specifically in just that effective field goal percentage. Their per shot efficiency just barely inside the top 10. The actual shots they generated, ninth best. That's still good. That's still very good. You're very happy if you have a top 10 offense in terms of the shots you generate. This is where the perception of the Pacers always gets screwy, where their offensive rating was pretty good, but not exceptional. The Pacers were fourth in that stat. They generate and make good shots all the time. Their offense was behind the Knicks because the Knicks had a lot of possessions and their per possession numbers were very good because they got a lot of offensive rebounds, right? They are by being a good at both of those stats team, a very good offense. They put the ball in the basket at a pretty good rate and they give themselves a ton of chances to do so. There's clearly more to their offense when they're ninth in effective field goal percentage, but top 5 in actual offense. Very few teams split it out like that. The Bucks and Pacers were two teams with very good effective field goal percentages, but just kind of offenses. That sounds harsh to say. Those are top 10 offenses, but just like not quite at the elite level because of the rebounding part of this, right? The Pacers in the playoffs have been an unbelievable offense, the best in the league. Last year, they were second behind Boston. I have no questions about the Pacers offense in this series. Now than 13 minutes in, I need to remind listeners who are going to comment and go, oh, you make it sound like the Pacers are screwed. No, these are just questions or challenges I think the Pacers will face in this series. There are also lots of advantages they will have. They're this far because they're very good. Okay, anyway, let's continue on the Knicks offense. The rebounding part of this and the turnover part of this are very important. They have good scorers. Brunson's amazing, right? They were talking about him at practice yesterday. The Pacers were, how he's mastered the angles, turning the corner and when to attack and how to get to his shots. Cat is an amazing shooter. Anunoby's got some pop and verve now. He looks great. Bridges is handling it after his slow start to the season with his shot. It's better now. Like, they have good offensive players. They also get a lot of chances with the other stuff. What I mean by that is, in the regular season, their offensive rebound rate was very good. It was 9th, right? Their turnover rate was also very good. They never turned it over. It was also 7th, right? Being in the top 10 of both of those things gave them lots of chances to score. And having more possession doesn't actually help your offensive rating. It's not on a per possession basis, but it gives you lots of chances to score. And offensive rebounding does give you more possessions, and they were very good at that. And that is how their offense really became elite, is that they could beat you down in the possession part of the game. And that is where the Pacers are going to have to be mega focused in the series. Early in the Cavs series, the Pacers were playing well because they were scoring a lot of their shots, but their turnovers were too high. Like, we talked about that on this podcast all the time. They knew it. It was like 15, 13, 16 a couple times early in that series. And the Pacers kept saying, rightly, they cannot give the Cavs this many extra chances. They were losing the rebounding battle quite badly. Game 3, that was one of the stories of the game. The turnovers were not where it needed to be. And so, yes, the Pacers made so many shots that it was great. And they could still do that again. In fact, I think that should be an assumption, is that they'll make enough shots to keep up in that way. But they have to, against the Knicks, similarly to the Cavs, keep their turnovers down, not let the Knicks get a bunch of extra chances by them forcing turnovers and never turning it over themselves. And rebounding will be huge once again, right? The Knicks cannot out-possession the Pacers in the series. That will be tough. They are good enough from an efficiency perspective for that to be a concern. Obviously, the Cavs, the theory was that they're so good from an efficiency perspective that would be a concern. It wasn't. But the Knicks cleaned up the rebounding battle against the Pacers this year. They won in every single game. All 3 games the Pacers played in the regular season, the Knicks won the rebounding battle. Cat is great on the glass. Mitch Robinson is too. The Cavs just had success with the bigs. Right? The Pacers can solve this. This is not an insurmountable problem. This is just what the Knicks present and what they're good at. But it's not just the bigs. And this is the difference from the Cavs to the Knicks that I think will be very telling in the series. The Cavs have the bigs who are great on the glass. And that's kind of it. The Knicks have Josh Hart, who's like nearly a double-double guy on the glass, who's 6'5", right? And OG Anunoby's become a better rebounder. He's close to 5 a game. That is where this one will be important for the Pacers. They are good on the glass. They need to be boxing out those guys. Whoever's on Josh Hart is one of the keys of the series for the Pacers in terms of rebounding. I'll be very curious how that matchup looks. We'll get to that later. And defending Karl Towns. Whoever's on Towns has to be like that too. Whoever's on Anunoby. Like, basically, if you're guarding Jalen Brunson, yeah, maybe you don't have to like be the best box out guy. Everybody else, you got to be locked in, ready to go. Because if not, you're giving the Knicks extra chances. And that was a huge thing in the playoffs last year. I said this on yesterday's show. The team that won the rebounding battle won every single game in that Knicks series last year. That is kind of a missed shot stat, but that's also a rebounding stat. The Pacers have to be on their A game on the glass, hold them to 1 shot as much as they can. It's not easy to do. Every team would do that if they could. But just between the bigs, the Josh Hart of it, the OG, the possession battle, how the Knicks actually score and get themselves lots of chances to be the efficient team that they hope to be is a little bit unique. It's a big series for whoever is boxing out those guys. And it's on the Pacers to not give up the ball a lot themselves, right? The turnovers they had in the Cavs series were not like they were that rushed. I never felt like, they were panicking or, they were out of rhythm. In game 3, a couple times that was the case. Their offense was not particularly strong in that game. But throughout the series, mostly I just thought, that's a bad pass. That was a little miscommunication, which can happen in the playoffs. Like that kind of stuff they got to cut down in this series because, yes, like the Cavs, you'd like to not have turnovers anyway because their offense, in theory, should be so efficient on one possession. But against the Knicks, they also come in with their own ability to not turn the ball over, and they're very good on the offensive glass, which makes it even more important, right? So I'll be very curious about the possession battle in these games, how the Pacers can combat the way the Knicks have such a good offense beyond their per single possession effectiveness. They add to it with the turnovers. They add to it with the rebounding. It's up to the Pacers. And another way to combat that is do what the Pacers did against the Cavs. Score a lot, set your defense, right? We heard that from Andrew Nembhard after game 5. The Pacers are able to score. That makes them able to press. That makes them able to play the way they want and dictate the terms of engagement. That could once again, like, throw out all the style stuff. If the Pacers just make their shots and play the way they want, they can they do exactly what I just said. Set their defense, be that high pressure team. They're picking up farther up the floor than anyone else in the playoffs. Make the Knicks feel the pressure. Make it hard for them to score. And then the Pacers can get out and run more. It's going to be a lot of this is about rebounding. A lot of it is about turnovers. A lot of this is about what the Knicks are good at. But in the end, to combat what the Knicks are good at, the best answer for the Pacers could be good at what they're good at. Score. Get to the basket. Make open shots, which they've been awesome at in this playoffs. And none of these could be issues. A couple other just scattered questions about the Knicks to close out the show. Stuff that I wrote down that I thought, I don't want to go too long on this, but I think it will be very interesting to see how this changes throughout the series. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Make Locked On Wolves your second listen. I suggested all the other playoff teams for your second listen earlier. The Wolves are the only other 8-2 team in this playoff field. In the conference finals, once again, Ben Beacon has more on the Timberwolves. All right, get ready for, I'm going to make this a thing, probably every game. Hashtag where's Hallie? Where is Tyrese Haliburton in these games? Think about the Knicks starting 5. Where are you putting, you listener, Tyrese Haliburton on defense? Not Cat, that's out. Not Brunson, that's out. So it's one of Bridges, Anunoby, and Hart. Interesting. Anunoby's got kind of too much power now. Maybe that's it, I guess. I don't know. I think the answer is probably one of Hart and Mikal Bridges. And I think if you made me pick between those two right now, I'd say it's Mikal Bridges, only because what other teams have done that's had success against the Knicks is what I mentioned earlier. They put their center on Josh Hart and they put a wing or forward on Karl Towns. Town sets a lot of screens. It makes switching easier. It makes that coverage easier. The big can hover off of Hart, who's like an okay shooter. He made some again. He's made a lot in this playoffs, actually, but you're not like so worried about that. It gooks up the spacing in a way that has had meaningful effects. I talked about this in the starting five against the Knicks offense. So if you put Tyrese Haliburton on Josh Hart, I mean, I guess Tyrese Haliburton's a good team defender, and he defended very well against the Cavs. It was his best defensive series of his life so far. Maybe that's what the Pacers decide to do. I just am very curious where they will put him, right? Where he will be put on defense and how the Pacers will kind of spray everything out from there. It's pretty clear to start the series, Nembhard will be on Brunson. I would guess Nesmith is on Anunoby. That will be an interesting one too. Maybe it's Nesmith on Cat. There's a lot of ways this could go for the Pacers, but Haliburton I'll be curious about. The other part of where's Hallie, though, is who's guarding him, right? The difference between last year's Knicks and this year's that's interesting to me is last year, if you remember, previewing the series, I asked the Knicks host, who do you think OG is going to guard, Pascal or Tyrese Haliburton? And this year they have Mikal Bridges to make that a little less important for the Knicks to decide. One of Bridges, Anunoby, will be on Haliburton. The other one will be on Siakam, right? The key thing on that will be, can they get out of it, right? How much are the Knicks willing to switch to get out of those groups? If they're not willing to switch very much, can someone else be really important? And an initiating perspective, that's whether that's Nembhard, whether that's Siakam, whether that's Turner against Cat being an awesome screener and like forcing Cat to defend in space for a few seconds before the Knicks figure out how to get out of it. So where's Hallie is a two-way street here. It could be a huge edge for the Pacers on offense and something on defense that they have to really figure out. So that will be, to me, something that I think defines a lot of possessions in this game is, do these teams end up mismatch hunting too much? Who's on who? How does this actually shake out? Where's OG going to be? Will Mikal be on Siakam or vice versa? It's just all fascinating. Congratulations to Jalen Brunson's man, who I am guessing just from thinking about it will be Aaron Nesmith. You are going to set a lot of screens in the series and should, right? He should. Nesmith, compared to last year, is probably the biggest offensive growth point in the Pacers starting five. If he makes shots again, he did it in Game 7 in the Garden last year. He's done it all playoffs this year. If he keeps making shots, the Knicks are going to have to figure out how to stop him, and they'd have to move Brunson to Nembhard or someone else. So Aaron Nesmith, like another key part of this. Where's Hallie? I just made that a whole matchup discussion for a couple minutes, but specifically Tyrese Haliburton on both ends of the floor. Where is he planted? Who's he guarding? Who's guarding him? How does it morph throughout the series if things are going a certain way or not a certain way for both teams? I'll be endlessly fascinated by that. Can this be a Bennedict Mathurin series? Last year, a lot of chatter, including for me, about like, well, it stinks that he was out because the first two teams they played, the Knicks and Bucks, are two teams that he has historically been good against. He played the Bucks this year. He was better against the Cavs and the Bucks, I thought, in the playoffs. Here they go. They get the Knicks again. His season high was against them this year. They beat them in a huge win early in the season when the Pacers were struggling in that game. That he was awesome. Haliburton was very good. Siakam was very good. One of the best trio games for those two of the season. But Mathurin had 38 in that game. He was exceptional. Can this be a Ben Mathurin series? How much time is he on the floor against lineups that don't have both of Bridges and Anunoby on the floor? I ask that because the Pacers are going to, or should, they got away from this a little bit in the last round, and it ended up working because they could play their starting five with more energy in the fourth quarter. But in third quarter, sometimes they played lineups without Siakam or Haliburton. In the first quarter, they did against the Cavs in Game 5, but that's because of Haliburton foul trouble. Regardless, they have gone to it a few times. I think in this series, it will be very important that one of them is always on the floor. If Mathurin's on the floor with one of them, how many chances does he have where he is just being guarded by somebody that he can score against? He just can't, right? He's very good at these things. And I think I said this with Washburn on Friday's podcast, that his playoff play has not been talked about enough, not necessarily because he's like exploded off the page or done all these things everybody's always hoped he could do, but because he's done a really good job of the fit-in stuff. They've put him on certain matchups for defensive purposes. He's cut well. He's taken the threes in rhythm, right? It hasn't led to like an explosive game yet. He had that really great half against the Cavs. He had a very good game the following game against the Cavs. But it hasn't been like, wow, that was clearly a Ben Mathurin defined game, even though he's been very good at times. I think he could have that in this series, and I'll be very curious if this can be the first Ben Mathurin series ever. He was hooping against the Knicks this season. If the Knicks pace takes hold, and this is a slower series, Pacers were near the top of the league in pace this year, Knicks were 26th. His style will be critical, right? So the tone setting with the pace will matter, and the only guy on the pace, not the only guy, one of the best guys in the Pacers at getting them out of that pace or making that pace actually tenable for the Pacers is Ben Mathurin, right? So if the Knicks take hold of a game, how can Ben Mathurin help? Can this be a Ben Mathurin series in an extremely meaningful way? I think will be a big question for me. OG Anunoby, I think he's going to worry the Pacers a little bit. He's just really freaking good. And he's better now than he was last year when these two teams played. And he was banged up in the series last year at times, as everybody well knows. I'm glad both teams are healthy. Can really be a decider after last year. OG Anunoby this year, career high in scoring at 18 points a game. He was at 17 with the Raptors in 21-22, but he did it this year on less shot attempts than he did in the year he averaged 17 a game, right? 37% from deep on his second highest volume ever, but he really upped his finishing. His free throws were there. The rebounding was there. An awesome OG Anunoby season. He is an excellent defender. He should make all defense whenever those teams come out. I can't believe we don't have all defense. It's mid-May. He should make all defense when that time comes, but he's also a potent scoring threat, a good offensive player. And he has like some power and some punch going toward the rim that I'll be very curious how the Pacers handle. Like, this is nearly a 60% true shooting guy who can really guard. How do the Pacers handle this? Who's on him? Like, I'd be tempted to put Nesmith there. The matchups of the starters are going to be fascinating to me. I think you can make a case for lots of guys guarding several different players in that Knicks starting five. But Anunoby, just in general, is a truck on the wing that the Pacers really haven't faced anyone like that in the playoffs, right? The Bucks' wings were either bad or ineffective. The Cavs don't have big wings, really, besides DeAndre Hunter. And he was not that awesome in that series. And credit to the Pacers, they've made that style of player not awesome in this playoffs. But Anunoby's their toughest test yet. I'll be curious how that goes. I've already seen it was really like just Keyshawn Johnson, but can the Pacers handle the Garden thing? Like, okay, the Garden is a thing. It's crazy. It's very cool. I'll talk about my own Garden experience at some other time in the future, but the Pacers have that experience, and it won't be the thing in the series. Come on, like Game 7 happened last year. It's challenging, but they'll be ready for Madison Square Garden. I can't believe that's a thing that has already popped up on social media. How much will Andrew Nembhard's defensive improvements help versus Jalen Brunson, right? Last year, Brunson played like he wasn't even there, shot over him, shot through him, whatever. They switched Nesmith on to him throughout the series. That was fine. It helped just a smidge, just to have that extra size on him. But Nembhard's a better defender this year. He's done well in this playoffs. Mitchell struggled against him specifically. Lillard struggled against him, albeit banged up specifically. Do they have to send other guys? Can Nembhard handle this alone? That will be a very telling thing. Look, no one can handle Jalen Brunson, right? What I just said is not a good way of looking at it, but you get what I'm saying. How deterring is he? How much can he wear him down and make his life harder? And hello, TJ McConnell. You're probably going to be important in this series because of pace factors, because of defending Brunson factors. He's got to play well. He was very up and down in the second round. He was either very good or very bad. It felt like every time he was on the floor. Very rarely just like pedestrian minutes. For him, he's actually more important in the series than I think any other series they've played so far because of how the Knicks structure their rotation. He's got to be able to keep the tempo up. He's got to be able to keep a defense in rotation. He can't be throwing the ball all over the gym, and his defense is going to matter. Those are my questions about the Knicks. Tomorrow, Gavin Shaw, a person who actually knows things about the Knicks, will join me to preview Pacers-Knicks. Can't wait. We're recording in about 45 minutes. And then Tuesday, again, I figure out who at the time, a Pacers guest to look at advantages the Pacers could have in the series. Could they define the series? And then it's time on Wednesday for the game. I'll officially be going to New York for them. Can't wait to see how the Pacers go. They lost the first two in the Garden last year. Any one win out there would be an improvement. Thank you all so much for listening. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony Arias. This podcast is at Locked On Pacers on Twitter and Instagram. Back tomorrow talking more Pacers and Knicks with Gavin Shaw. Till then, everybody, have a wonderful day.